Baseball fans, you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
The thing I wanted to talk about, of course, everybody's talking about the trade deadline because why wouldn't you, right? We've been talking about it pretty much all year because of the losses of Ronald Acuna and, of course, even the earlier loss of Spencer Strider. It's been a topic of conversation with the Atlanta Braves for a long time, and that's not going to change until July 31st when the trade deadline is come and gone. So I think where we are right now, let's just take a second to appreciate the fact that Alex Anthopoulos does know what he's doing, right? When you look at the offseason, the vision for 2024 was clear to me, right? Okay, we got Strider coming back, you got Morton coming back, you got Fried coming back for this season. We're going to bring in Chris Sale to not only cover this year, but also the couple of years after that, because they knew going into that year that, hey, we may be losing Charlie Morton and Max Fried either to retirement or to free agency. So they brought in a starting pitcher to help, hey, not only is he going to be good for this year, but he's also going to help carry us into possibly the next generation of the Atlanta Braves. Then all of a sudden, Spencer Strider gets hurt, things change, and you go from going into 2025 knowing that you're going to have Spencer Strider and Chris Sale and whoever else you've carried along and risen up in 2024, to now you only have Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez now that you are confident in. But the vision was clear, right? And to me, the vision was clear offensively as well, but we've seen injury after injury. We've seen, all these different things get in the way. The fact that the Braves are still in reaching distance of the NL East is appalling to a lot of folks, because a lot of other teams would have fallen off if this were to happen. I look back at 2023 where we won 100-plus wins. We didn't have a ton of injuries, and even when we did, it didn't seem to interrupt quite as bad as this year has. But we also didn't face as many as we have this season.
Are you ready to save big on a new Chevrolet?
Make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox, discounted up to $6,500 off. The powerful Chevy Silverados are up to $13,750 off. And the big Chevy Silverado 2500 HDs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
When we look at the trade deadline, a lot of things have changed in the last month. When Spencer Strider first got hurt, I told you that I thought starting pitching has got to be top priority. Well, then Ronald Acuna gets hurt, and you begin to wonder, well, is it top priority? Because at some point you felt like Acuna and Austin Riley and Olsen would all break out. We've seen now Riley and Olsen are starting to. We've seen Sean Murphy starting to as well. And you begin to wonder, well, do we still need an outfielder, right? And I believe the Braves could very well get an outfielder. I wouldn't be surprised at it at all. I don't know if it's top priority, but then again, to be honest with you, I don't know that I think starting pitching is top priority anymore. The reason that I believed and still do that starting pitching has got to be a factor here is that you're going into next year questioning what you're bringing back. And yes, you can do free agent signings in the offseason. You can make a trade in the offseason. You can handle that in the next offseason. But you're going to have to do two, in theory, at the same time, because you're losing, again, in theory, both Morton and Fried. That all goes out the window if Morton agrees to come back for one more year or if you re-sign Max Fried. But if we're a betting man, and I am, if you're looking at this situation and you're looking at the way we've handled free agencies before, I'm pretty convinced Max Fried isn't coming back. I could be wrong. I'm just pretty convinced that he's probably going to sign somewhere on the West Coast. That's kind of where I'm looking at it right now. With Charlie Morton, you just can't guarantee anything, right? And you're down your ace in Spencer Strider. You really are only bringing back, for sure, pending injury, Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez and whoever would follow down in the minors. So I think, to me, the Braves need to go get somebody for at least one as a starting pitcher. I think one would suffice, one that has an option for next year, because then you go into next year with knowing that you're going to bring back Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez, and whoever you would sign for that year. I've brought up a couple theories. You can all throw them at me if you want to. But that's the way I view this trade deadline. I think there's got to be a starting pitcher. Now, that really isn't even for competing this year. That's for next year and continuing this dynasty that the Braves have built. When you look at this season, there's a lot more that needs to be looked at, right? We can talk about the outfield bat. We can talk about the bench. I think you can talk about the bullpen a little bit. The Braves have had a pretty good bullpen, but without a doubt, they've taken some hits. A.J. Minter is currently injured. Tyler Matzik is injured, probably out for substantial time. I think that the bullpen could certainly use a boost, and you see that when you see guys like Raisel Iglesias giving up late-inning homers that you otherwise are unfamiliar with seeing. You see that when you see Joe Jimenez give up a 2-run shot the other day against the Orioles. I think the bullpen could always improve, right? And I think you can easily package a bullpen arm amidst another trade. So to me, I think if you can somehow package a starting pitcher with an outfielder or a starting pitcher with a reliever, I think you do it. And it may be at the cost of a Spencer Schwellenbach. It may be at the cost of an A.J. Smith-Shawver. And it's really indicative of just whatever the Braves feel comfortable doing, they're going to do. If they can get someone or multiple people to help the team right now, I believe they're going to do it. We've already heard from Alex Anthopoulos that the Braves have been more active in searching for trades than ever before under his leadership. And that is not said without a purpose. He wants teams to at least take a look at what the Braves have to offer in the trade market. Some teams are going to want too much. I don't think Alex Anthopoulos is going to fall for that, but they're out there looking for good players. I wouldn't be surprised to see in something along the lines of some kind of combination for a starting pitcher and a outfielder. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some kind of, combination for a starting pitcher and a reliever. The one that intrigues me a lot that I've seen a lot of people talking about is Luis Robert of the Chicago White Sox. He's battled some injury this year, but we all know how good Luis Robert can be. And to me, I think he fills a void of a Ronald Acuna, right? And you're probably thinking, okay, well, what do we do with him next year? And I hear you. I hear you completely. He is not a free agent at the end of he's not a free agent at the end of this year. He's a free agent at the end of 2026, so next year. I think you could package some kind of deal with the White Sox where you get Eric Fetty and Luis Robert and you solve your starting pitching problem, you solve your offensive problem, and you solve your outfield problem all in one trade for two players. Now, in 2024, Luis Robert has got a 195 average. A lot of you guys are going to turn your nose up at that. Just keep in mind he was an all-star last year, and he finished the season with a 264 average. So it all evens out. He's only played in 21 games. So that doesn't necessarily matter. I'm telling you that if we can get Eric Fetty and if we can get Luis Robert, I think we should do it. Now, again, I say that. I don't know what they're trying to get us to give up, right? If they're trying to give up the entirety of our minor league starting pitching, then I might be a little opposed. But I think something like that would be good. Now, the other caveat to that is the Braves may not be the only team looking for that kind of package, right? And I doubt they are. I doubt that they're the only ones reaching out to the White Sox trying to get them to fire sale. I doubt that's the case. Everybody knows that the White Sox are one of the worst teams in baseball. Everybody knows that they could be picked apart. The White Sox know it too. And I think that, hey, if they can get him, if they can get him traded and get the most for him, they're going to do that. So it's easier said than done. And I'm not saying this is the trade that I think the Braves are going to do. I think it's a trade that they could do.
Are you ready to save big on a new GMC?
At Glynn Smith GMC in Opelika, you can own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $14,500 off. The roomy and comfortable GMC Terrains are up to $8,250 off. And the GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7, discounted up to $8,000 off. At Glynn Smith GMC in Opelika,
Get ready to smile.
And really, when you talk about trades, I could throw you a million different theories, and none of them are going to be more legitimate than any other because it's just that. It's a theory. It's everything sounds good when you start talking about trades. And I try to avoid getting you too excited about it or putting up a thumbnail that's clickbait, right? And, sometimes you have to do it. Sometimes you have to talk about it. But I try to give you a realistic expectation. Luis Robert and Eric Fetty would work wonders for the Braves, but there's a lot of other, teams that you could do a trade like that. And it may be multiple trades across different teams. There's also the idea that, hey, we're not going to just trade for Eric Fetty and Luis Robert. We're going to get Eric Fetty, and then we're going to go get, Brent Rooker or whatever you want to do, right, with the A's. I think that there's a lot of different things that can happen. The key here is that I think the Braves are going to prioritize a bat and starting pitching. And I've changed my take on that because originally I told you, look, we don't need a bat. Our offense is set. That was before the Acuna injury, right? Things, of course, changed. I always thought that the Braves offense would break out. They're too good not to. But with the Acuna injury, I think there's definitely a spot for an outfielder because right now Michael Harris is hurt. Jared Kelenic is taking over in left. Duvall's in right. And really you have this rotation of guys that are coming in filling the need. JP Martinez, Forrest Wall. Glad he got an appearance, by the way. Really happy to see that. Super nice guy. Interviewed him back in spring training. Hard worker, has worked on his swing, and it has shown. So very happy to see him performing where he is right now, and happy to see him in the big leagues, getting the shot he deserves. But that said, if you're looking to upgrade, the outfield's definitely one you're going to circle. And I think ultimately the Braves are going to look for a bat, but I think they're also going to have to look for a starting pitcher. And again, not for this season, but for next. So we'll see what happens. I think a lot of things can happen. I'm expecting, it's hard to expect what happened in 2021 where you had just all of a sudden, you got Jock Peterson a month before the deadline. You got, Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, Richard Rodriguez in one felt swoop there at the end. That to me is expecting a lot, but I definitely think you could see some kind of quick, oh my gosh, they just went and got everybody. And it may not even be blockbuster names, right? Let's be honest, Eddie Rosario at the time did not sound like that big of a deal. And by the way, we traded Pablo Sandoval for Eddie Rosario, fun fact of the day. That didn't seem like that big of a deal at the time. All of a sudden, he's your NLCS MVP. Jorge Soler was on fire with the Royals, right? But he didn't seem like a huge get on name value, right? You're not getting a, how do I put this, a Carlos Correa or, just this big name with big money, but you're getting someone who can perform just as good when needed. And Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario were able to do that. Jock Peterson, and I would even argue Richard Rodriguez at the time seemed like the biggest moves. Richard Rodriguez was killing it as a reliever. He gets to the Braves and he kind of fell off. We all know about that. That's not the point. What I'm saying is some of these moves that are made at the trade deadline may not seem like a big move, but wait till October and we'll see how big they are. That's the way I feel about it. I think there's a lot of things that can happen. I think a lot of different moves can be made. I see some folks pointing out Kevin Pillar. We talked about that on Sunday night. I don't hate the idea of Pillar. I'm not against it at all. I don't think he's a starter, though. I don't know I know he's raking right now. I don't know that you bring him in and expect Ronald Acuna numbers. Then again, it could be the Alex Anthopoulos trade of the year. I mean, there's a lot of ways it could go. I mean, as a guy who's watching it and seeing how it's folding out, and, as a guy who frankly likes Kevin Pillar quite a bit, I just don't know that that's the move. I would love it to be, but I just don't know that it is. Either way, I think that, again, our priority at the trade deadline, without a doubt, is starting pitcher, outfield bat. That's our priorities. Anything other than that is gravy. If you can get a reliever or two, even better.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.